specific circumstances that led you to make these decisions, with some consideration of the similarities and differences of your experience.
Well, thank you. I mean, Bruce will tell his own story, but I do know that we both had a disagreement with our party leadership over specific pieces of legislation, which certainly for me was the straw that broke the camel's back. But it was only the straw that broke the camel's back. I was very unhappy in the Conservative caucus for at least a year, probably ever since the 2011 election, as more and more control got centralized in the Prime Minister's office. And many journalists have written about the command and control structure of the current government and how message control is all determined in the center, and caucus backbench members are expected to be loyal foot soldiers and essentially be part of the communication branch of government. I didn't sign up for that. When I signed up to be an MLA back in Alberta, or when I signed up to be a member of Parliament, I wanted to be a legislator. I signed up to represent my constituents in Ottawa, not represent Ottawa to my constituents. But as time went on, it became more and more clear to me that their expectations of me were to toe the party line, speak from the speaking notes. If I wasn't comfortable with that, I should have my own speeches vetted before I read them either in public or in the House. I became an avid blogger in about 2011, and that got me in constant trouble with the Whip's office and the PMO. I'm a conservative, and I don't like when taxpayers' dollars are wasted, so I started blogging about it. I blogged about the F-35 procurement fiasco, and I blogged about cabinet ministers who were ordering $18, $60 glasses of orange juice, and cabinet ministers were being chauffeured around Parliament Hill in limousines as opposed to taking the green buses that are good enough for Bruce and I. And they didn't like that, and it led to one tete-a-tete after another, and I got taken off committees and put on the Library Parliament Committee, which is the equivalent of the high school detention hall. And they moved my desk from the government backbench to the opposition backbench, way in the corner. I needed binoculars to see the speaker. And, you know, all these sort of petty, unaffected, quite frankly, attempts to discipline me. I guess they took them a long time to realize that I was incorrigible. But regardless, I wasn't going to become compliant, and I wasn't going to play the game by their rules. I was going to continue to be a constituent representative as opposed to a party shill. But the rubber at the road for me in the spring of 2013, I had a private member's bill, 461, the Public Sector Disclosure and Transparency Act, and it was going to do a number of things, but most notably it was going to force salary disclosure of very, very high-level civil servants and political staffers. The number that was chosen, I'm sure you all probably remember this, was $188,000, and which wasn't going to cover the vast majority of civil servants. About 85% would still be exempt. But even at that high level, PM Communications could not support my bill. They saw it as nothing but a political headache, that the government would be forced to disclose one bad news story after another as journalists started filing access information requests to get the specific salaries of senior civil servants, deputy ministers, and political staffers. So the government gutted my bill at a very warm day in June of 2013 when they thought nobody was paying attention. I knew this was coming. This was not a surprise to me, because they wanted buy-in from me that I would agree to these amendments and I wouldn't get it, or I wouldn't give it. So I lobbied the members of the Access Committee to support my bill and to reject the PMO's attempts to gut my bill. And I think I might have actually been successful in that effort had I not been the subject of what is probably the dirtiest trick in caucus or in committees, and that's to switch the members. So the Whip's office dispatched regular members of the committee and sent them on some junket someplace, and sent a whole bunch of 3 or 4 new members of the committee who were compliant foot soldiers, and they did the PMO's bidding for them, and my bill was gutted. and the salary disclosure was, the bar was raised from $188,000 to $446,000, which means that it would apply to nobody, and it would be completely useless. And so I resigned from the caucus later that day, stating that the government's lack of commitment to open government and transparency was incompatible with my own personal beliefs, and I had to leave, because for me to stay would be sending them the wrong message. The message would be, yeah, you can do this. You can gut a bill. You can replace members who support the bill with compliant foot soldiers who will do your dirty work, and there'll be no ramifications for that. I couldn't let that happen. I had to send a message. No, if you do that, if you treat your backbenchers that poorly, there will be ramifications, and you'll have one less member.
I was listening to Brent's press conference that day, and I remember one of the things he said, which was, my party, the Conservative Party, has morphed to become what we once mocked. It's a great quote. My story is very similar. It boils down to, even though supposedly firearms legislation was the proximate cause, the real fundamental causes were too much power to the leaders and the power and parties, and very little to the MPs. And a desire, a naive, perhaps, desire to represent my constituents and my conscience and what's best for Canada ahead of the party. That started almost as soon as he got elected. Most MPs don't really know what they're getting into. But very soon, unelected party apparatchiks start trying to bring you in and tell you what to do and what to vote and what to say and what to think, and it's pretty sad. I will say this, Jack Layton never whipped a vote when he was the leader, at least not with me. He was very persuasive. He would use any tool, guilt, single malt scotch, whatever worked, but he never whipped a vote. And it changed fast after Jack passed away. So I'd tell you kind of a sad story, a true story. But before the leadership race for the NDP, I asked all the potential leaders how they felt about whip votes. And I got a variety of answers, but Tom Mulcair was unequivocal. He said, votes will be whipped. You will vote the way I want all the time. That's the way it is. So after Tom became leader, and I had a couple of conflicts over votes, I had a meeting with the whip. And the whip told me, I won't imitate her French accent, but the whip told me that either I voted the way she and the leader and the party wanted, or I would be punished. That was the exact word, I would be punished. And they said, furthermore, we won't sign your nomination papers next time. So I said, well, first of all, I have a 19-year-old son. He's an A student. He's stellar. I love him. I've never punished him a day in his life. I talk with him. I reason with him. It works. I said, well, that's the way it is. I said, well, then I might as well go independent. And here's what the whip said. She said, you won't quit. So, 2 hours later, Mr. Speaker, anyway, we won't go into the details of that. So, a year and a half later, I joined the Greens. And the way I've joined the Greens for many, many reasons, and I won't do a partisan right now, except to say, it is the only party that doesn't whip votes. And it is, well, you can laugh because there's only 2 of us. But in the convention this summer, I was gratified. I had nothing to do with it. Somebody introduced a resolution that said the Green Party will never whip votes. And now it is part of the Green Constitution, and it was passed unanimously. So I hope that becomes true, and we hold that balance of power. But anyway, it's the only party that allows me to represent